Okay, so now we're gonna start the exercise that I've taken many, many people through, and it's really, really, really profound, and it will really bring out our values. So in order to do this, you have to make sure that you're somewhere quiet. If you're doing this in the middle of work, or you're doing this while you're driving, or you're doing this while you're trying to, make peace between your 3 kids, not a good idea. You should probably find a better time to do this, because you need to make sure that you got quiet space and a clear head. You may want to put some music on in the background that might help relax you. And I want you to have that pen and paper in front of you, and I want you just to answer one question, and I want you to dream. I really want you to dream. I want you to think as big as possible, because I always say to people, when you think big, if you can't get here, you can still get here or here, right? But what I find a lot of people do is they think down here, and many of the times they can't even get that, and then they get nothing. So I want you to think massive. I remember I was talking to someone, I said, what would you really love to do? And they were in a dead-end job. What would you really love to do? And they said, well, I'd love to be a doctor. I said, okay, great. You've aimed high. You aimed really, really high. I said, if you could be anything, what would you want to be? And they're like, a doctor. I said, great. You're up here. And I said, tell me what's holding you back. What's the real reason? Let's get rid of all the excuses of fear or I don't have enough time and all that stuff. Let's get to the real reason. And he had a reason, and it was a fair reason. I don't remember what it was, but at the time, that's a reasonable reason. But let's focus on what it really means to be a doctor. What is it about being a doctor? Is it because you want to help people? Is it because you like the whole medical concept? What is it? And we discussed it. And what we found out was, okay, so you might not be able to become a doctor, whether or not your reasons are fair or not, but let's just assume that they are. There must be a level down that you can still get involved and get those core characteristics. So I want you to aim high. Aim high, however crazy it may seem. I want you to put down, but don't put silly things down, right? Don't put stuff down that you don't really want, but you just want to put down because it sounds fluffy and nice. Put down the things that are will really give you a sense of energy, will give you a sense of excitement, will give you a sense of meaning, would make you feel like you're living life. I don't care what it is, but aim big, okay? So here we go. So I just want you to answer one question. Just one question I want you to answer. And you should put the video on pause while you're writing this down. And I want you to answer this very one question. This is the question that people have answered, and they've discovered their values through it. Not through writing this down, but through the next stage that we're going to do with what you write down. And that one question is like this. If you had no limitations, no strings attached. You could do whatever you wanted. You had financially no limitations, emotionally no limitations, energy and time no limitations at all. How would you want your life to go? What would you want to have in your life? What would you want to experience in your life? What would you want to feel in your life? What would you want to be doing in your life? What are the things that you'd want to own in your life? What are the places where you'd want to go in your life? That's the question I want you to answer. So let me say it again. If you had no limitations, no financial limitations, no energy limitations, no time limitations, no limitations whatsoever, you are totally free in every sense of the word. What would you want to have? What would you want to own? What would you want to be? What would you want to feel? What would you want to be doing? What would you want to experience? What difference would you want to be making? What would you want to have that you would be proud of in your life? What would you want to be achieving? What would you want to take from here and get it out there to the real world? Now, you may need to rewind the video to listen to those questions again, but those are the questions. That one question, the one question, I want you to answer that question, and I want you to write down. It doesn't matter how little or how much, because it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Whatever you put down will be very, very useful in discovering what your real values are, which is what we will do in the next step. So go ahead, spend some time, give yourself this gift, because as I said before, there's only 3 things we have to own: self-worth, emotional intelligence, and what are we living for? Our values. And we are one step away from, after this exercise, from discovering what our values are. Okay, so hopefully now you have a list of things that have been the answer to the question that I asked before you put me on pause. So this is what we're going to do now. I want you to look at the first thing that you've written on that list. The first thing that you've written on it could be that I want to be in a loving relationship, okay? Let's give it a theme. What would you say is the theme to that first desire that you want to have, that first thing that you want to bring into your life? I want to be in a loving relationship, okay? Well, the theme would obviously be relationship, okay? Let's now go, so write the word relationship down, put the word relationship down, but also take that word relationship and put it on another piece of paper. Okay, because we've just discovered that you have a value of relationships, because being in a loving relationship is just a doing thing. What you really want, what you really value is relationship. Let's go to the second thing. I want to learn how to paint, how to draw, whatever it might be, okay? So again, let's put a theme. What's the value of that? The value of that is a hobby. It's a skill, it's expressing yourself, but you can put whatever theme, whatever name. I would just call it a hobby, just keep it simple, but you can put whatever theme ticks, whatever works for you, okay? So again, you put the word next to it, you put the word hobby. And again, on a separate piece of paper with where you got the other value of relationships, you will put the value of hobby. And what I want you to do is I want you to go through all the things that you've written down, all the things that you've written down on your list, and go through each one. Okay, and it could be you'll have 3 or 4 that are on relationships, and it could be you'll have 3 or 4 on hobbies, and go down that list. Go down that list. I want to feel more peace of mind. I want to feel really in control of the way that I think. Okay, well, let's put a value to this, put a theme to that. That is emotional well-being, or emotional health, or just emotional intelligence. Again, a new value. Let's label it on the piece of paper, but let's also now take that value and add it. Now we've got 3 values already. So I want you to go down the whole list, theme every single one, and when you find you have a new one, add it to those list of values that you have on the other page. So go ahead and do it. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, and when you're ready, continue the video. So I like to tell people, everyone has a different way of doing things. Some people say have 20 values. I don't know. I'm not sure if that works for me. I think things that are simple are easier to live by. And if you have to wake up every morning, oh my God, I got 20 values to live by, like, it's just going to take too long. I personally have 4 values, and I've simplified it. And the way to simplify it is to look through your values. Okay, it could be you put down emotional intelligence and emotional well-being and peace of mind. Well, as a value, really, they probably could be joined together. They could be mushed together and be connected, and we can just create one overriding value that represents those 3 values that you put down the separate piece of paper. That's if you've got, I'd say, I generally recommend people, but there's no fast or hard rules here. I recommend people to have between 4 and 6 or 7, at 8 at the most, but really to aim between 4 and 6, I'd say, of values. So if you have 10 values, that's great, nothing wrong with that. But then I would suggest maybe, because it's going to be hard to wake up every morning and go into that imaginary room and have 10 baskets. The more simple things are, the more clarity we have, the more likely we are to act upon it. So if you can, and if you need to, stop the video again and try and connect as many as you can without diluting. You don't want to dilute your values. You don't want to dilute them at all. But so for example, I've got one that's called health. And for me, that connects physical well-being and emotional well-being together. So I've connected them together because it's all about health. That might not speak to you. If it speaks to you, then you can do something like that. But for me, it spoke to me. And now I just have 1 value instead of 2. And for me, it's really the same thing, and they're very much connected. So go away and see if you can shrink the value list, not losing the value, but adding them together with an overarching value that connects 2 or 3 values together to try and get it down to about 4 or 6, between 4 and 6 values. So pause the video and then come back to me when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully now you have anything between 4 and 6 values. So we've only got like 2 steps left of things that we have to do. The next step is to prioritize them. Okay, so you've got a value of hobby, which is great. I think that's fantastic to have that sense of self-care and that kind of stuff. And you might have a value of spirituality or value of relationships. And you want to know which one is the most important. Right? You want to know which one's the most important because you want to spend the most amount of time, the most of your amount of your quality of time, on that value. So you want to know which values are the most important to you, because you don't want to be spending time maybe on your hobby when really that time should be for your relationship. You need time for your hobby, but there's a time and place for everything. So you really want to discover which one's the most important one. So what you do is you play them off against each other. So you have to ask yourself, if you only had 5 minutes to live, right? Where would you spend that 5 minutes? Would you spend it on your relationships, or would you spend it on your hobby? And if the relationship would win, then tick the relationship. Then play relationships off spirituality. If you only had 5 minutes to live, would you want to connect to God, or would you want to spend time on a relationship? And it might be you want to say, well, I want to connect to the greatest power in this world. It will be spirituality. So spirituality will get 1 tick. And then you'll play relationships off a sense of contribution. Which one is more important for you? And then you'll give it a tick. And then you'll go down to the next level. So we had relationships, hobbies. Okay, so let's do hobbies against spirituality. Which one would win? And then hobbies against a sense of contribution or career or job, whatever the value is for you, and you play them all off each other. And then you add up the ticks. It'll be very clear to you which one is the most important. And then you'll list them, rewrite them, it's only 4 or 6 values, relist them in the priority that you really hold to be the most important. It'll give you a great sense of clarity as, number one, what your values are, but number two, what's really, really important to you. And then we're going to go to the last stage to really make this a full picture in regards to our values.